and founder. Today's subject for the webinar is integrating Selenium with Confluence and JIRA, and that's to achieve.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, web events made easy.
So I'm going to kick off the webinar. We'll get right underway. Again, apologies for the slight delay. So here's our agenda. First, I'd like to give you an overview of zAgile, corporate overview. Discuss very briefly some of the challenges you're probably all aware with respect to test management and automation today, in particular with using Selenium. Then I'll give a kind of a broad overview of the Wikidsmart platform as well as the corresponding products. So as you're going to see, we have several applications that ride on top of the Wikidsmart platform. Then we'll drill into details about Wikidsmart QA, one of the applications within the suite that's aimed specifically at test management and test automation. I'll give just a very brief overview, then I'll hand it over to Sanjeev, and Sanjeev will give a little bit more details about Wikidsmart QA, about what you can achieve, and then he'll jump into a demo of 15 or 20 minutes. And then at the end, we should have some time. We can handle some Q&A as well. So first up, the overview of zAgile. Our mission is to integrate teams, tools, processes, and knowledge. Now, the company set out to achieve this, first of all, for application lifecycle management software engineering tools. That means things like version control, continuous integration, issue and task management, testing tools like Selenium, and so forth. And the reason for that was, Sanjeev, as a VP of engineering for many years, always had this problem plaguing him, and that was, how does he get the most recent or even real-time status of what's going on with his teams? You have teams working in QA and in engineering, documentation, and you have corresponding stakeholders in sales and support and so forth. So how do you get a real-time view of what's going on in the engineering software delivery process, and how can you communicate that effectively to other stakeholders within the company? Sanjeev recognized that the real-time status is there. It's within the repository of each software engineering tool. And he simply wanted to have a way to reconcile the content within each repository and aggregate it together. How can you get that view and also kind of traverse that information architecture so that you could drill through and get traceability or search as required? The principles that he decided that the solution would be built upon were semantic web technologies. So he used that as a vehicle because semantic web technologies are essentially being used to integrate content of different websites, and you can use that same technology for enterprise content integration. Therefore, if you see that second gray bullet point, it's not just confined to application lifecycle management. You can also extend this to other tools, other applications, other domains. So for example, we have a connector for Salesforce.com. So you can connect content in JIRA, for example, with customer issues or cases within Salesforce. The company was founded in 2006 and launched after a couple of years R&D, version 1 in 2009. There you see some of our technology partners as well as professional services partners in Europe, Pix in Germany and Valientus in France. We have some very nice coverage in the press. I invite you actually to most recently view the article from InfoWorld, which was an interview with Sanjeev a few weeks ago. So just go to Google and look for zAgile and Sanjeev Nath and InfoWorld, and you'll have a very nice interview that gives the whole vision of zAgile a little more detail than what I just described. There you see some selected customers. This is across the board from major corporations such as Bechtel, smaller software companies like Market6, healthcare providers like University Healthcare Network, etc. So what are some of the challenges with test management that you're seeing today? Well, first of all, there's no easy way to extract the test definition from execution. So to have an abstracted view or separation between the definition and the execution. For example, if you're going to manage tests within JIRA, well, those two are locked and combined together between the test definition and the execution. What you want is to have an abstraction of those two things. And there's no way to easily link tests to requirements and to track across the iterations what's going on for the purposes of traceability. There's no way to have very sophisticated test support for multiple nesting levels of the test suites. So you really are kind of confined to manage everything in a kind of a flat structure, which makes it very unwieldy when you have, especially when you have a lot of tests and a lot of different iterations to do. And there's no support for test automation or workflows. And remember that JIRA does have workflow, so there should be a way to be able to leverage that workflow with respect to your testing automation and test management. Now, on the test automation side, there's a lack of a structured repository for managing the scripts. So what do you have today? You just have essentially a file system of Selenium scripts and no way to manage those very effectively. Therefore, you can't really associate a script with a test seat or associate a test run with a test case. And there's no way, therefore, to map results of the script execution back to test definitions and features. And then you cannot tie the script execution to workflows. As I mentioned before, you have a workflow engine in JIRA. Why not leverage that? Finally, you don't have all these ways to associate test scripts and with JIRA and to get kind of a high-level view of what's going on. So there's also no way, therefore, to have a daily or even real-time reporting on what's happening with the test management and automation and execution across the whole process. It would be really nice if you ran the test and boom, you've got a nice dashboard and reports to see what went on, what failed, have it traceability back to requirements and so forth. And that's what you're going to be able to achieve with the Wikidsmart platform. So I wanted to, because this is the topic of the webinar is about test management and automation, I wanted to cover those points right up front so you're aware of what the content will be covered in the webinar. I'd like to take a step back right now and speak more broadly of what the zAgile mission is about in a little more detail, as well as the Wikidsmart platform, so that you see comprehensively where we're coming from. So this is the problem that Sanjeev had encountered as a VP of engineering for many years. You have in the middle of this software engineering lifecycle from market research to requirements and specifications and so forth and bug tracking. On the left, you have the business sponsors who are representing the requirements and the strategy. And on the right, you have the operational folks, sales, customer support, and so forth. So as you go through this cycle at the top, what's going on with the folks on the left and the folks on the right, you've got this kind of spaghetti mess of communication. You've got emails, phone calls, and when you have a distributed team, teams in India or Ukraine or Latin America, this is all made to be further complex with respect to time zones. So the ideal way to communicate would be for everyone to get on the same page in a wiki or a portal or what have you, to have an aggregated view of what's going on. So that was the overarching problem that zAgile wanted to set out to solve. Now, I'd like to take the next few slides to talk about a few different words that are kind of thrown around in enterprise software. And I'd like to give you the zAgile perspective on those, because I think there's a lot of FUD and uncertainty about what is meant by some of these words. So I want to give you the zAgile perspective so that you understand the context of where we're coming from. So let's first talk about integration versus interoperability. A lot of times you hear folks saying, we have integration, or those products are integrated. And what do you mean by that? Oh, it's because we can log in over there and we can log in over there. When we log into one system, we're automatically logged into the other system. Well, remember, that is just a login. That's not cohesive integration of content. And likewise, the next point here is for point-to-point connections. Folks say, hey, yeah, I've integrated them. How did you do that? I just made a point-to-point connection. A talks to B. The problem is that requires a lot of coding, and it tactically might be okay, but A talks to B, but what about point C? What about application or tool C? Well, guess what? You need two more connectors. A has to talk to C, and then B has to talk to C. Now we're getting into this spaghetti code of integration. Well, no problem. We'll introduce a service bus. Well, the problem here is it doesn't matter that you can convey data across a service bus. The problem here is to have contextual information about tangentially what's going on. So for example, if I want to know something with respect to a project called Gemini, and I want to see requirements for Gemini, I know that I'm looking for Gemini requirements. So if I put in a keyword search for requirements, for Gemini, and I want to see requirements, I should only see that. I shouldn't see Gemini issues or Gemini customers. However, whenever I want to tangentially look for that information, I should be able to do so. So, and also when I'm passing information back and forth, the information amongst the systems should be contextually aware. So this contextual interoperability is what Zagile's Wikidsmart platform achieves. When you plug in Selenium or you plug in JIRA, they instantly recognize what each other is doing. So you don't have to hard code all that content, the logic, I should say. Next up is about traceability versus connecting. Again, our friends at Atlassian deliver fantastic tools. It's the leading ALM suite nowadays, and they continually improve the tools and also the connections or the integration amongst their products. So for an example, JIRA 5 connects even better to Confluence. However, there's no awareness about what that content is being used for back and forth. So in other words, there's no awareness when JIRA is connecting to Confluence about a requirement within JIRA. It's simply connecting point A to B. And so what you want to achieve really is traceability between the content. So when JIRA connects to Confluence and Confluence connects to Selenium, they all should be on the same page about what that content is about and how it's all interrelated. And that's what Wikidsmart delivers. Search. So this is the third of the 3 slides that I wanted to go over with respect to terminology. For search, I somewhat covered this point in the previous 2 slides. When I search for something, I know what I'm looking for in enterprise content. I'm looking for example, the Gemini project. I'm looking for requirements. So when I search for that, I should be able to find only that. Don't give me all this other clutter. And when you do a semantic search, that's exactly what you're doing. You can think of it as a more advanced or sophisticated search like you see in some search systems out there. And in fact, Google has recently announced that it's moving to a semantic search approach using some of the same approaches that Zagile is doing for the enterprise. And what that allows you to do is find specific content and also see related topics so that you can surf the information landscape with respect to what you're looking for. And so that's what the Wikidsmart platform does again. So Wikidsmart platform and product overview. I'm going to tell you how the core inner workings are using these technologies that I described to deliver applications specifically for use cases that you desire, like test management and automation. First, I want to point out also that the Wikidsmart platform is open source, as well as the applications that I'll be describing. So what you can do is simply go download the products and use them specifically for the use cases that we're describing. So what's the first thing, first benefit of the Wikidsmart platform? Well, it's uniting your environment. So therefore, you achieve these things that I was just describing in a very cohesive fashion. Anything you plug into the Wikidsmart platform is instantly aware of everything else. So you don't have to wire the logic yourself. It does it for you. Therefore, you can achieve automation of new content. So information flows among systems. And when I say new content, what am I talking about? For example, if you want a composite view of what's going on in Selenium and JIRA and Salesforce and how it's all interrelated, you can generate reports, real-time reports and dashboards that are created in wiki pages, they're created in a portal. They could be even created within JIRA or Salesforce if you want. It's all up to you. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel with respect to GUIs. You just choose the GUI that you want, that you already have, and whatever works with respect to your role. So we also achieve consistency and easy maintenance of content. So let me back up here. So what that means is because we are capturing content in structured forms in Confluence, for example, for test management, there is no kind of inconsistency between one test case and another test case. It's all consistent across your suite. Finally, Wikidsmart turns JIRA and Confluence into an application platform. So what you're actually doing is having new applications, in this case test case management and automation, using the same stuff that you're already using. We're not saying here's yet another tool to achieve these. Use Selenium and JIRA and Confluence as you were, but now add these make these products even better by working together even better. So visually, I'd like to show you what's going on. So there's a couple slides here on the architecture. So we're not going into great detail about the architecture, but indeed we want to show you visually what's going on. The idea is you see at the very top different categories of software engineering delivery: requirements, issue tracking, version control, etc., test management with Selenium. Now, underneath that you see some examples of software engineering tools that and applications that we support. And then the various aspects, the key identifying attributes of information corresponding to those different categories. So what's going on is the Wikidsmart platform has connectors that recognize each of these identifying attributes. It pulls in only those identifying attributes, not all of the information within each repository, but it captures only those identifying attributes and weaves them together and maps them together with this software engineering knowledge model that comes out of the box with Wikidsmart. So things like, it's tough to read, but down below, if you look at those little balls, they're interconnected. There's things like process, products, team, projects. So the software engineering model that we deliver understands that we all have different methodologies and processes and ways of delivering software. However, we all have things called code, and code is created by developers, and that code has issues related to it, and that code should have, hopefully, specifications, requirements associated to it. And so this generic software engineering knowledge model recognizes that. It imports these identifying attributes, maps them together, and what we achieve, therefore, is a web, if you will, of the information architecture for our own environment. And that's done within this context server, as we call it, the Wikidsmart context server. And we call it as such because now we have a trusted source of how everything is contextually related. And we do that, again, without coding anything. We just plug this all together. Now, the second page shows, as a benefit of this contextual integration, we can now serve powerful new applications, one of which is the subject of the webinar today, QA. So what's happening, again, on the left is we're integrating the content from the tools and applications. It's going down below with this Wikidsmart context server. We have this semantic overlay, if you will, that combines all of this content, and therefore we can drive these powerful applications on the upper right, Wikidsmart applications. And you can not only deliver these new functions that are essentially composite applications, so leveraging existing functions and delivering new functions, but you can also have coherent reports of the comprehensive content as well as dashboards. So what are the different applications that we provide? Just a brief overview before we go into that second one, Wikidsmart QA. PM is for product management, so that's requirements management within Confluence using structured forms that are provided for Confluence. Tie those requirements to issues and tasks within JIRA bidirectionally, and also integrate, of course, with Greenhopper, which it's already itself a plug into JIRA, and other tools as required. Wikidsmart QA, again, is for test case management within Confluence, integrated with JIRA and Selenium so that you can achieve workflow-based automation and traceability. Now, Wikidsmart ALM, you can think of it as the ability to grow in to whatever needs you may have. You might start with either PM or QA, but you can grow into the full ALM suite capacity by also adding in continuous integration support and version control support. So if you want your whole software engineering environment to be integrated, you have that option with ALM. On the other hand, finally, you have Wikidsmart CRM. So if you want to integrate your software engineering delivery with the business side with the sales and marketing folks via the CRM, for example, for Salesforce.com, we have a connector also that bidirectionally talks to both of those, capturing everything, comments, notes, etc., on both sides of the fence. So let's drill into Wikidsmart QA. So I'm going to give, first of all, the high-level overview of features, and then I'm going to hand it off to Sanjeev, who will take it much farther, jumping into a demo. So first of all, again, you're uniting the environment. So not only are you uniting Selenium with JIRA and Confluence, but as I mentioned before, if you want to add in other integrations, it's already, what you already start with enables you to do that. So you don't have to do a painful migration or upgrade. You just add on connectors as you require. Just using RESTful integration, of course, which is becoming the de facto standard for integration nowadays. All this is done in a bidirectional manner to deliver features as if it's one system. So really that's what you are attaining with the Wikidsmart platform, is everything becomes one system. Now on the Confluence side, you can create structured wiki pages for test management and then view those test results and reports within Confluence. So that can act as your dashboard if you wish. On the JIRA side, you're associating JIRA issues, one or more, to a Selenium test, and vice versa. You can have multiple Selenium tests associated to a JIRA issue. And then finally, as I mentioned before, you can report across everything, having reports and dashboards within Confluence or within whatever other GUI that you desire. So what I'd like to do at this moment now is hand it over to Sanjeev to talk about how to achieve this full cycle test management. Sanjeev?
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Let me just get the slide. Okay, so can you hear me?
Yep, I think it's all.
Okay, great. So greetings, everyone. Thank you for, again, joining us, especially on a holiday week. So what I want to talk about here, what I will show you, is how you can achieve full cycle test management using Confluence, JIRA, and Wikidsmart QA. So some of the things that you will see in the demo shortly is how you are, for example, how you would manage test cases in Confluence, how you can automate these test cases using Selenium test scripts. You can create test runs for iterations. So for example, if you want to execute only test cases that are for smoke test or priority 1 tests, for example, then you can execute only those tests for specific iterations. You can execute test scripts through JIRA workflow, which means that you can drive conditional executions as well as capture results. And then, of course, as the test cases are executed using Selenium or even manually, the results of execution are captured and related back to the test case and subsequently to features, requirements, components, releases, and projects to all of the entities that the test case is linked with. And this allows you to create reports and dashboards so you can have traceability at the requirement level. And you can answer questions, for example, such as for any particular requirement, for any particular iteration or version, if you will, in JIRA, what were all the test cases executed, where are the test cases, how many of them were executed, what are the results, and in essence, you can track the quality of your requirement or feature as you progress through your release cycles. So let's quickly go into show you how Wikidsmart allows you to do that. So what I want to start first is with a project wiki page as a top-down view. So one of the things Wikidsmart allows you to do is to create a wiki page for any particular JIRA project. The idea of doing that is to extend attributes of the project. As you know, JIRA project allows you to capture description, project lead, and some additional attributes within JIRA itself. But you can now create a wiki page for that project, and you can extend attributes. So you can capture things like business case, dependencies, and risks associated with the project. You can also, as I'll show you here in this template-based form view, you can associate stakeholders for that project. So these stakeholders may come from a CRM system, for example. And furthermore, you can add additional information or capture additional information related to the project. For example, any associated artifacts that are related to this particular project can also show up. So in this particular page, for instance, we have we have a table which is automatically updated whenever artifacts such as features, test suites, and components are added to the project. So here, what you're looking at is we've got a list of features. Now, these features are defined within Confluence pages using our feature templates. However, they can also be defined within JIRA if you're using Greenhopper. So you can have a list of features, you can have a list of stories and epics, and the same thing here down below, you've got a list of components. So as you're adding more components to JIRA, you'll see those components show up in the list here. And then in terms of the action items, what we can do, for example, is associated with any feature, we can create a test suite. So in this particular flow, a feature is basically a high-level definition of something that you want to implement, and then that can be broken down into use cases and requirements, as we'll show you. But the point is that this particular relationship and the templates are very extensible, and so they can map to however your internal processes are defined in terms of whether you're using features, use cases, stories, and whether you want to map test suites or test cases specifically to any of those concepts. So let's first show you what a particular feature might look like in our example. So we can go to a feature that we've defined within Wikidsmart using Wikidsmart PM. So here, a feature, as I pointed out earlier, is basically a high-level definition. But you can see here, for example, that we have related this particular feature to authors we have associated with the project. And then we can also create test suites and design documents associated with this feature. And the feature itself consists of summary description, business case, information that you want to capture along with it, as well as use cases and requirement items. In this particular example, the requirement items are the items that are assigned specifically for implementation. So you can actually associate each requirement item to a particular component that is associated with that project. You can also link the requirement item to specific stakeholders. So you can now start to track as the feature is being implemented across multiple versions in JIRA, you can track which feature and which requirements are targeted for what specific stakeholders. And then, of course, you can initiate review cycles at the requirement level, as well as create implementation tasks for tracking the actual development of that requirement. So in this case, you can see all of these relationships are automatically captured and carried over as a result of the project to which this particular feature belongs. And just to, again, show you the form-based view of this and how you would potentially tie these things together. So you can see, for example, the components are automatically pulled in from the JIRA project. The stakeholders are pulled in because the project itself has been linked to specific stakeholders. So now let's come back to how the test suite definition would work. So we'll go back to our project wiki page. And again, as I said, the list of features, whether they're defined within Confluence or whether they're being picked up from JIRA through Greenhopper definitions, will show up here. And so one of the things you can do, for example, is you can create a test suite. So just to show you how that would work, we're going to just create a sample page. And now that we've done that, you can see, for example, that this particular test suite is automatically linked to the project and the feature where we just came from. However, we can do more. What we can do, for example, is we can define a particular type of a test suite. For example, is it a functional regression test suite, patch verification, system integration, user acceptance, and so on. So you can add, depending upon how you want to characterize these test suites, you can add your own categories here. You can also associate the test suite with any particular specific test specification document that needs to be linked to it for reference. So here, for example, we will create a functional regression test suite. We will add some summary statement here, maybe some detailed description related to this test suite. And so this is basically the header for the test suite itself. Now, at some point, as we start to add test cases, again, if you recall the flow here, this test suite is going to represent a collection of test cases associated with this particular feature. Although you can extend it and you can customize it to link test cases specifically to features or to link test suites to components or projects. So you have a fair amount of flexibility in how you want to achieve this. But in this particular example, what we're going to do is start adding test cases. So if we add a test case here, for example, you'll see that you can create a test label. A test case ID will be automatically generated. You can assign a priority to this, as I mentioned earlier, that this allows you to then run or execute automation for these test cases based on specific attributes such as priority or whether it's a smoke test or it's part of the smoke test collection. So you can mark it whether it's going to be part of this smoke test set. You can associate it with particular component. And if you like, you can also associate it with specific requirements that are linked to that feature. So once you've done all of this, you can save the test case. And of course, you can continue to add more and more test cases that become part of this test suite collection. So once you've added this, now it becomes easy to actually treat this as a test definition. And Wikidsmart QA allows you to capture Selenium scripts and link them automatically to each test case. So in this case, you can basically use this button to paste in any scripts that you may have written that correspond to that particular test case definition. The script itself will be stored in Subversion, and it's version controlled. So you can continue to revise through these scripts. So now let's come back and see what some of this looks like and how test automation would work. So let's go to one of the test suites that we've already created as example. Here you'll see, for example, a source on demand test suite that's actually associated with Smart Templates feature. And as you've seen already, for this feature is linked, this test suite is linked back to the feature itself. And now you've got a number of different options. So you can, for example, create a test script associated with the test suite itself. Now this could be a collection of nested test scripts that can be executed to run a whole series of scripts to test out the full feature itself. Or you can, for example, associate scripts with each test case. So in this particular case, what we have done is to capture a Python script and paste it and associate it. So basically, this is what the script itself would look like, and it's a Selenium script. And so now this particular script is associated with this test case, If you want, you can also add test steps and have much more granularity in terms of your test case execution. So now let's take the next step. If you can imagine, for example, that there's a test suite here, and it consists of a series of test cases that are all corresponding to the feature, and maybe each test case could have a relation to a specific requirement and or a specific component, so that you can actually start tracking test results by requirement or component in your big picture as you track project delivery. So now what you can do is you can actually execute this test either manually or through Selenium, depending upon whether or not it has any scripts associated with it. So what we do here is to create an execution task in JIRA, and we use JIRA workflow to drive the test execution. So let's see how that would look like. So here you can see, for example, we've created a JIRA issue, and now we can assign a date to it. If we want to track it in terms of when this particular test will be executed, we can associate it with JIRA version. And you'll see here that this execution of this test case is automatically linked back to the test case itself. So the execution task and whatever the results are will be associated with that test case. And so that you can now relate the definition of the test case, which is in Confluence, with potentially multiple executions which will occur in JIRA. So now that we have created a task, you can associate this task with a workflow. You can see that it's a task of type test case, and you can see that it's automatically linked back to the test case here. And now we can either execute this test manually, or we can execute it through Selenium if there's a script associated with it. So let's go through and do that. So we will just invoke the Selenium script here, and you'll see right away that as we invoke that, there's a link to process dashboard that you can access to see what's happening with the script itself. And this is going to be relevant when you're executing several hundred of these tests at a time, so that you can start tracking the execution of these scripts over time, since it may take a few hours. So now you can see, for example, in the comment section for this execution task, the process dashboard link is here. You can also see that the script file was executed, and it returned with the status success. So the test was successful, and then the status is updated, obviously, automatically associated with this task. Okay, so all of this relationship is automatically linked. So the test execution task has a relation to the test case itself. It has a link to the test results document, for example, which we just saw. So if you want to reference it at any point in time, you can come back to it and view the details for what really happened there, if there were any errors, for example, or if the test failed for any reason. And then, of course, you can see in the comment section on when it was executed and what happened to it. So now we can go back to the test case itself, and you'll see, for example, it takes you right back to the test case where we started. And then now the idea of having all these relationships and all the linking is so that you can start to track what really happened. So one of the things Wikidsmart also allows you to do is to view dashboards at entity level, at object level. So in this case, the test case itself is an object, and it has certain information associated with it. As you've seen already, it has some related requirements. It has some related components. It also has some associations with execution results. So if you click on this icon, for example, you will be taken to a properties view for this test case. And now you can start to see, for example, the dashboard of the test case itself. You can see that it's associated with a particular component. It belongs to a test suite. it has an association to a particular requirement. But you can also, for example, now see that this test case has association with actual execution tasks. And so here, for example, Wikids 90 was the task that we just executed. It returned the result success, and then it was on this date, and it was associated with this particular release. And overall, you can create, and this again, this view here is customizable. It's also a templated view, so you can add charts and dashboards and reports here, depending upon what you want to track at a test case level. And but from here on, you can continue to navigate. For example, we're looking at the view at the test case level. But if we click on the requirement, for example, because we want to see detailed information at the requirement level, you can go to multi-level nesting requirement, and now it will tell you that it will give you a dashboard view for the requirement, which is what are the approval tasks associated with it, what are all the test cases, and then what's the test execution history at each test case level, for example. And so now you can start to see not only the history of a test case and how it was executed, how many times and for which iterations it was executed, but you can also start to see at the requirement level the history of that requirement and its test execution. And you can continue on from there to, for example, at the release level. So you can also automatically see a dynamically constructed dashboard for the release in terms of what features and requirements are associated with this release, what are the status of those features and requirements, what's the test execution history, and so on. So here's the Wikidsmart 2.0 release dashboard that's automatically generated, giving you real-time view. So it will tell you what's the execution, what's the status of the development tasks by status, by assignee, what's test execution status, the features and requirements of the release, and what's the status of these. So all of the things that are flagged in red are obviously overdue tasks here, and so on. So basically, the idea of linking test definitions with features, components on one side and with execution on the other is so that you can automatically start to see all of this come together as you're continuing through your project delivery cycles. Now let's come back to the project wiki page again. And what I want to show you is how you will create test runs. So one of the things that people ask us about, for example, is the ability to, now that you've defined test suites and you've created a whole lot of test cases, so you may, for example, have, as we've shown you in this example, you may have defined a test suite that corresponds to a feature. And you've linked test cases to components and or requirements. So now when you want to go and execute test cases using Selenium, there are a number of different ways you can do that. You can run all of the test cases or execute all the test cases and scripts that are associated with the feature. But you may also want to actually execute test cases that are associated with a requirement, test cases that are associated with a component, or all of them that are associated with a particular iteration, for example. So there's a number of different ways that you want to create your test runs, if you will. So one of the things that we allow you to do, for example, is that you can create a test run, which is essentially a dynamic collection of test cases that has some association. So for example, in this simple example, what we have is a test run that gives you a list of all the test cases associated with the feature. So this will automatically give you a table, a list of all the test cases, and now you can select one or many of them depending upon certain attributes, for example. So you can add additional attributes here, such as priority and whether or not the flag for smoke test, and you can select however many tests that you want to execute, and then just go and execute all of these. So this is an example of how you would initiate bulk execution of test cases. And you can imagine that in this particular case, you would end up with, potentially several dozen or 100 or so test cases that you want to run at the same time. And all of these test cases will be automatically linked to this single JIRA task, which will then go and in parallel execute all of these test scripts at the same time. So you can see, for example, we're going to say, okay, let's go ahead and execute the script. You'll go to the process dashboard and you'll see all the test cases that are running at the same time. And then as you continue to see the status, and when all of these executions are finished, you can come back to it and look at the results. And of course, the results will be captured for each test case and reported back at the level of the test case, at the level of the feature, at the level of the requirement and version and project and so on, as we've shown you. So I think on that note, Andrew, I will give you control back.
Okay, great job. Thank you, Sanjeev. So let's see, I gotta show my screen here. And so you can see my slides again, Sanjeev?
Let's see, yep.
I hope the answer is yes. Okay, great. So just a few more slides to wrap up here, and I think we do have some time. It looks like questions are trickling in, so I think we can handle a few questions towards the end here. So just to summarize, first thing is first, so Wikidsmart is the only platform that can contextually integrate content from any software engineering tool. So here we were talking about really Selenium with JIRA, with Confluence, but any software engineering tool you have or any application can also be contextually integrated into this environment so that all the content is viewed as recognized as one system, one organism, if you will. I'd also like to, before I jump into these other points, make a backup comment here. I think Sanjeev and I emphasize things about having structured ways of doing things and structured templates, for example, within Confluence. And Sanjeev mentioned it several times, but I just want to underline it. This is all customizable. So if you want a template to look a different way, if you want a process or workflow to work a different way, it's up to you. If you want a different looking dashboard, if you want anything different at all, it's all completely customizable. These are ready to go applications out of the box, so to speak, and you can tailor those to however your organization works. So back to the slide, therefore, with this platform, you guarantee these things that don't exist today in any other platform. Traceability, interoperability, and federated search of all of the content. So remember, we're managing tests within Confluence, as you just saw in the demo, and you can automate those scripts of Selenium in a very deep, contextual way, integrating with JIRA and Confluence and others. So, I mentioned before, this platform is open source. So if you look at the Zagel website, we have a pricing page for annual subscriptions. So what gives? How do you reconcile that? Well, the fact of the matter is we provide services, professional services. If you want help extending those in any of the ways that I described, whether you want to add connectors for in-house applications or other off-the-shelf applications, if you want to customize the templates, you can certainly do it yourself. If you want to go faster, we can help you with that. And also we provide annual support subscriptions. So although this is open source, you're free to download it. Some folks want to have a commercial license in-house for whatever reason. Sometimes there's different requirements for that internally, but we can deliver that for you as a kind of a wraparound of services and software licenses. So the suggestions for next steps are go to zAgile.com, go ahead and download Wikidsmart. We actually provide all the applications bundled, so you don't have to pick and choose which one you're going to download. We just let you download all of them together, and then once you download it, it's very lightweight. You can just pick and choose which functionality you want to achieve. Remember to sign up for the online documentation. So there's several links for that on the home page of Zagel. So that will help you ramp up to speed in a maximum way how to use the products. And you can also add in questions into the sandbox documentation page yourself. So if you want help with, how does this particular feature work, I need more detail, just post that question right there within the doc, and someone will get back to you very soon. If you have immediate questions, we invite you to email us at info@zagile.com, and we'll get back to you immediately. So with that, there's a few questions that have been coming in. I'd like to refer those back. Let's see. The first one I think is going to be for Sanjeev. It talks about, the question says, what about requirements traceability and integrating with other testing tools? For example, HP Quality Center. Do you want to comment on that, Sanjeev? We still have you there?
Yeah, actually, first of all, the Wikidsmart Contact Server allows other applications, other testing tools to be integrated, and in this case, Quality Center, it is something that is on our radar as well as on the roadmap, where we will be developing a connector for Quality Center to hook up with our contact server so that it can be linked the same way. So you can basically integrate both test case definitions from there as well as use the automation capability.
Okay, great. The next question looks like I'll hand this one to you, Sanjeev. It says, we use Jenkins for test case automation. I see you listed on your website as supported, but you did not mention it here. Do you want to comment, Sanjeev?
Yeah, good question actually. So there's a couple of ways people are using Jenkins out there. Our Jenkins connector right now, for example, is focused around integration, around continuous integration, which is basically to capture the semantic attributes of builds and link them to check-ins and features and requirements and so on upstream. However, we've also been asked about how people want to integrate Jenkins in the context of running test automation. And so that is something also that we're looking into doing so that we can support Jenkins for running various types of testing frameworks and so on. So it's something that is likely to be on our roadmap soon also.
Okay. And I covered this one. I'll take this one. I covered it a little bit on the previous slide, so perhaps the person was anticipating that, or maybe I anticipated the question ahead of it, but it was, how does pricing work and what does that get me? So that's to the point. I like that. So again, you can download and use this stuff for free. You don't have to engage with Zagile. If you do, if you like to though, for whatever reason, if you want to make sure that you get professional support directly, if you want to extend the system, if you want to have a commercial license, for any of these reasons, pricing starts at $150 a year. So that gives you, to answer the question more directly, an annual subscription to, commercial license of the product, as well as technical support to help you through this. So we help you troubleshoot also a lot of stuff, maybe more than a lot of other software companies who might just say, read the document. We are, committed to helping folks become very adept at using the system. So we like to go farther. If you wanted to go beyond that, to connect to different systems, to customize templates, again, you can handle that yourself. If you want to get your hands dirty, if you'd rather go faster, then we can help you do that with professional services. So looks like we're about out of time. I'd like to hold off there. For the other questions, we will be following up by email. And again, info@zagile.com if you want to provide other questions as well. We'd be happy to get back to you very quickly. So thanks for your time, and we'll wrap it up here. Bye-bye.